Okay, I think I forgot to hit record. Okay. Make sure I'm recording, not just live streaming. Fun. Welcome once again to another episode of No Man's Land with me and my friend Howard Rhodes. Today, as the title suggests, we are going to be talking about the Israel Palestine conflict. More specifically, the history of it, how it's been
Well,
covered in American things, right?
right. So we're going to talk more about the history next week. This week, I
Ah,
specifically
right,
wanted
right.
to talk about how the media has covered it
Yeah,
over the
that's what I'm going to
years,
say.
and so we've cherry picked some random clips from the dawn of television up until today, so that you can kind of observe how this debate and conflict has changed and not changed at all at the same exact time. So let's start with the Truman clips. So I don't know the
I have
exact
that
dates on
nice
these.
and ready to go.
All right, so I don't know the exact dates of these clips, but I can only assume it's 1949. And what's really interesting about this, Truman was the first president to address the nation on television. But the thing is, only about 2 million televisions existed
Oh,
at the time.
it was
And
1964.
that's
The
Truman in 64?
Yeah, the if you go to the description, the videos that you sent me, the descriptions
Yep.
say the conflict of Harry S. Truman, which aired in television in 1964 and 1965.
Oh, okay. So this is way past his presidency, and he's justifying it. All right, that's very interesting. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
let's listen to this. So it's important to take note that Truman was, of course, the president when Israel formed. So his opinion on the conflict is pretty important. So let's see what he has to say here.
Trying to think, should I have this? Should I have this chatting screen thing, or should I have like the actual full screen for what I'm doing here?
Do the full screen.
Let me get to the live scene box instead of what I'm currently doing. That one. I was gonna have like the chatting thing because then I could have myself to the side and have everyone speaking, but the box is all weird. I gotta eventually get it like an editor or some an animator, editor, or some kind of artist person to help me with a new box for that, a new
Right,
page for
right.
that. Uh,
All right, you're gonna play both of them back to back.
yes, I'll play the first. I will play the first one. He discusses the establishment of Israel.
Right.
This is a minute long. Are you able to watch alongside me, or hold on? Let me see if I can
Uh,
like.
so I
Let me. Sorry, Ted.
Yeah, I still haven't figured out how to do anything, but
Oof.
I'll take some time for sure.
And yeah, definitely see if like if you're able to get like some kind of like desktop thing ready to go that if we can watch something together, that kind of thing. Because I could see about streaming it here on Discord as well as what I'm currently doing. That way you can see it at the same time. Or would you be able to
Right,
do
right.
that?
I I could probably do that. I don't know about right now. I'm still on a phone, but I can probably set it up on my computer, and we can figure out how to do it more easily.
Yeah, we'll figure that out in the future episodes.
All right.
Okay. First one, if I can get to my things. Okay, first thing, former President Truman discusses the establishment of Israel.
1549.
But don't think that decision to recognize Israel is an easy one.
All right. So
I had to make a
the thing that's
compromise.
really noteworthy about this to me is how moderate it sounds in comparison to what anyone's saying nowadays.
All right.
He's acknowledging how bloodthirsty both sides are.
Oh yeah,
Which I mean,
yeah, when you
like
sent them to me, I took a
can
look
I?
at them.
What's that?
When you first sent them to me, I took a look at them and I got them set up ready to go so that we can react live as well.
Okay. Are
Okay.
we live right now or are we on mute?
No, we're live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're live. That's yeah, I already said like we were live. Uh,
All right.
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't name a modern politician who um who speaks this moderately about the issue.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's go. I'm starting it now. Full minute. Let's go ahead and have it just go through, and then we'll discuss everything he said.
All
If you
right.
like, if you want to like watch on the side, that way, you're also keeping track of everything. Okay.
1549.
But don't think that decision to recognize Israel is an easy one. I had to make a compromise with the Arabs and divide Palestine. The Jews wanted to chase all the Arabs into the Tigris and Euphrates River, and the Arabs wanted to chase all the Jews into the Red Sea. And what I was trying to do was to find a homeland for the Jews and still be just with the Arabs. But when you go into a thing of that kind, the people you help most are the ones that get most angry with you. Both of them were against me on the situation, but as President of the United States, I paid no attention to them, carried out what I thought was right, and I had the support of the Congress, and I could do it, which is unusual in these days.
Could you tell us specifically that a lot of Jewish people were against you, too?
Oh, well, there were a lot of Jewish people against me because they wanted the whole of Palestine. As I say, they wanted to drive all the Arabs into the Tigris and Euphrates rivers.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Okay. Listening back to it again, that definitely. I have the second one ready to go, but let's go ahead and talk about what was just said on that first one. When he was establishing it, trying to find a homeland for the Jewish people, um, the Jewish people wanted to completely drive out the Arabs, and the Arabs wanted to completely drive out the Jewish people. So it was, so as you said, it seems like it was definitely a mutual thing. It wasn't just Jewish hatred. It was also Arab hatred, I guess.
Well, I think that when you read the history, you go back to the days of the Ottoman, and you start to read some of the rhetoric and the propaganda that was written in the days of the Ottoman. You could see that it was already very much like that. It was like two groups of citizens, like an impending race war. Like that's how the rhetoric plays out. And what's kind of interesting is like I've said, at this stage in the game, the American politicians seem to be acknowledging that. They seem to be acknowledging that both sides are extremely toxic in many ways and just ready to kill each other. Which today it's very much an either or situation. People don't see it as a gray. In fact, it's sometimes controversial to say that it's a gray issue.
Yeah, I've noticed. Boy.
All right,
Okay.
so here's what I want to get. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you saying?
Here's what I want to get to now. Now let's pull up the two Billy Graham clips. Now, one of the things that really dirtied the water
Oh,
in America.
do you want to go over
Yeah,
the second Truman clip first, or do you want to go to the Billy Grahams first?
let's just go to Billy Graham. I think that
Billy
the
Graham.
first one kind of gets the gist of it. So when the water really started to get dirty was when the Southern Baptist, Southern Protestant movement
Uh,
discovered Christian Zionism. This is where things
which one did you want me to do first? Graham talking
the
on Richard Nixon, or the
the
uncovering the
the
shocking?
the other one. The
Okay.
other one goes first. So the Southern kind of Baptist Protestant, movement had all these rock star preachers come out of nowhere around the 50s and 60s. And these guys believed that the formation of Israel was a prophecy and that the Bible passage that talks about that territory belonging to the Jews was evidence of God. And they spread this around. And this is part of how the
The
just worship of Israel comes from the Christian right. So let's take a
Yeah.
look at how Billy Graham talked in public,
This is this is
in
gonna
the
be
50s and 60s.
this is me blindly reacting to this because I haven't gotten a chance to watch this one yet. So let's see.
All right.
I'm gonna have it go fully through, and I'll give my takes on it.
Why, my children have never known a day when they didn't have television. And they can't imagine the ancient world where there was no TV. There are so many things. I could spend all evening just talking about Israel and the Jew. God's timepiece. This wonderful, magnificent people chosen of God. Their country destroyed in 586 BC by Nebuchadnezzar. And the Bible all the way through from one end to the other in scores of scriptures predicted there would come a day when they would be gathered from all over the world back to their own land. And in 1948, when President Truman recognized Israel as a state and the United Nations declared it as a state, for the first time in 2,500 years, and the Bible had predicted that these people, only 13 million in the whole world, scattered in the whole world, would be drawn back to their own land.
Okay.
All right. Let's get your reaction to this.
Oh my god. Okay, so something that I really love to listen to, in my off time when I just want to listen to something that's not only mind provoking but entertaining to listen to. I listen to atheist call-in shows. And what Graham was saying there about the biblical prophecy and everything reminded me of every single fundamentalist calling into those atheist call-in shows talking about prophecy.
This is where it started with Billy Graham.
Yeah, and so so when you're talking about like the Bible predicted it 2,000 something years ago, with the prophecy, the problem I have with someone saying that kind of stuff is that prophecies need to be specific, and biblical prophecies are never that. They're always the super vague things, and they were so written out that it's not far-fetched to say that someone who happens to be very religious could have been working for decades, if not generations. Like people from generations could have been working to make the prophecy happen. Like it wasn't a natural thing. So
in this case, that person was Theodore. In this case, that person is Theodore Herschel, who creates this concept of Zionism, who basically says the Jews are entitled to this land because of this Bible passage. So that's quite literally people making the prophecy come into
self-fulfilling.
Now, so what's interesting is it's very rare to meet a Christian Zionist who will say out loud that he thinks that Jesus will return if the Jews control the Middle East. They're out there. There are people who believe that. It's very, very rare that they'll say that, though. But virtually any person who's in like that kind of Southern style of religion will essentially repeat exactly what Graham just said in that clip there. It's an extremely common idea that Israel validates the Bible.
Oh, my grandmother is definitely one of the. She doesn't call herself a Zionist, but she's definitely someone who says that. Well, that's their land. It says so in the Bible. Like she's definitely one of them.
Yeah, she may or may not have grew up listening to Billy Graham, but she probably grew up listening to one of his plagiarists.
I will need to check. I will need to ask her. I'll need to ask her another day.
So Billy Graham, Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, they all said the same thing, and Graham was the guy who came out first.
Pat Robertson. So that's who she listened to. Pat Robertson. That's who she heard it from.
There you go. And Pat Robertson was like, pretty much trained under Graham to just mimic what he said. Jeez. All right, so that's how fucking Graham talked in public about the Jews. Now listen to the Nixon clip. This is from the infamous Nixon tapes. This is how Graham talked about the Jews in private.
All right. Everyone watching, here you go.
Makes a distinction, Mr. President, between two groups of Jews. One is called the synagogue of Satan. In other words, they are energized by a supernatural power called the devil. This is what the Bible teaches, whether you believe it or don't believe it. This is the biblical teaching. This is what I believe. And I believe that they have a strange brilliance about them. Oh, they're smart, and they are energized, in my judgment, by supernatural power. Well, also they do something else. They're not smart. And you see, of course Hitler didn't. They had a stranglehold on Germany, on the banking of Germany, on everything.
Oh my God!
The whole thing, you see.
Right? So basically, the only difference that they have with Hitler is they're not willing to say that they're in favor of executing anyone.
Bruh. Hold on. It didn't even finish. I didn't even finish.
You didn't even finish?
No, I got to the part where he brought up we said a stranglehold, and it floored me. Holy shit.
Okay, keep
Has
going, keep
got to
going.
be broken, or this country is going to go down the drain. Yes, sir.
I can't ever say it, but I believe it.
Nobody's been elected the second time. You might be able to do something. You see,
Jesus Christ! What the fuck?
Oh man. So in public, this man is spreading the idea that and popularizing largely in America the idea that the Jews are entitled to this land. And behind closed doors, he's fucking Hitler.
Dude, basically, he probably wants to do that. Yes.
Oh man. And this is true of Farwell, of Robertson, of all those guys. Like, if you dig into it, all of those guys have been caught on a hot mic saying crazy anti-Semitic shit.
Oh
But
no,
they're all the biggest,
I've had that
biggest
thought
fans of
process.
Israel.
I've had that thought process for years. When I first started learning about Israel and the Zionist project or whatever, when I first started learning about it, my thought process, like the first person I can't remember who I can't remember who I heard it from, but the first thing I heard someone say about it was that Zionism is just anti-Semitism wanting to biblically burn the Jews, something along those lines. And I'm like, huh?
I mean,
I didn't understand that.
I won't say that all Zionists fit into that category,
Not
but
all.
these motherfuckers certainly do.
Yeah.
And another famous example of a more modern figure is Mike Huckabee. Do you remember Mike Huckabee?
Mike Huckabee.
He was governor of Arkansas, Republican, ran for president. At some point, had a show on Fox News. He's probably like the most obnoxious Christian of the modern Republican era. But if you look him up, man, there's some videos of him saying the most outlandish anti-Semitic shit. And in public, he is the world's biggest Israel supporter. Like, it's fucking comical. He's a caricature of an Israel supporter.
Jesus Christ. Oh my god. And I almost want to like pull up Twitter real fast and just look up stuff to see like how people are currently talking when it comes to it. I almost want to do it, but I'm like, I don't want to pull my hair out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So, all right, let's move on. So, of course, another big issue with Israel Palestine lately, or not so much an issue, but a media event, was Jonathan Glazer's Oscar speech. Now, you saw it, right? We don't have the clip pulled up, but I'm sure everyone saw it, right?
Most people have seen it. Definitely take a look at his acceptance speech for it was called Point of Interest.
Zone of interest.
Zone of Interest.
Now,
Thank you.
now there's a lot of interesting things to talk about this movie, which I haven't seen, but let's start here. The only other time something like this happened was when Vanessa Redgrave won her Oscar several years ago. And by several years, I mean sometime in the 70s. So Vanessa Redgrave, I'm not sure if it was before or after, but around this time, made a documentary about the PLO and went and visited the PLO and posed with them and took pictures, very much like Jane Fonda with the Vietnamese. So naturally, she was very, very vehemently hated by a lot of people. So she won an Oscar for this movie called Julia, which I believe in the end, the movie was itself kind of a hoax. It was supposed to be a true story. I'll have to look into that a little more. But there was an anti-defamation league of some sort that protested her nomination. So when she won, this is what happened.
That a bunch of people who apparently were you said she was Vietnamese?
No. Jane Fonda. So remember, Jane Fonda went to visit the Viet Cong and took pictures of them. Vanessa Redgrave did this with the PLO, and this is why she was a controversial person at this time, was for meeting with the PLO and for very vehemently supporting Palestine.
Okay.
So when she
thinking off. I don't know why my brain fucking froze for a second there.
Yeah, no worries. So this is what happened when she won her Oscar.
That everyone just like for some strange
Oh, you have
reason
the
just got
clip.
attacked.
You have the
I
clip,
have it.
right?
I do not have the clip, unfortunately.
Oh,
Or
it's in our stream.
oh, it's in our chat. Hold on.
Yeah,
Let me see if I can
hold
grab
on.
it.
Yeah, you'll find it.
God, where was it? Judas Butler, October 7th.
Nope, going way up.
Oh, which one
I
is
think it
it?
was the first one I sent, actually.
Was it? Uh, Edward said the first one is sent. Oh no, there it is.
Nope.
Vanessa Redgrave, Zionist hoodlums.
All right.
Oh,
So this is
yeah,
here
I
we go.
read that. I read it. Yeah, I read a small portion of that from the article you sent me. That one was breaking news apparently. uh,
Oh yeah. But anyway, so here's Redgrave.
let's go ahead and listen to what she has to say. Quick 44 seconds. This is what Vanessa Redgrave had to say about, I guess, Zionism and the Israel-Palestine conflict back in what year was this?
This has got to be the mid to late 70s, maybe early mid 70s, or maybe late 70s.
Jesus.
And I salute you, and I pay tribute to you, and I think you should be very proud that in the last few weeks you've stood firm, and you have refused to be intimidated by the threats of a small bunch of Zionist hoodlums whose behavior is an insult to the stature of Jews all over the world and to their great and heroic record of struggle against fascism and oppression. And I pledge to you that I will continue to fight against anti-Semitism and fascism.
Thank you. Base department called. They loved it.
Yeah, right. So I mean, just the audience reaction too.
I
So
heard.
so the
Yeah,
thing
no.
is,
I almost. I almost. I was trying to like stay silent for it so I could hear the full thing because it was kind of quiet. But I heard that. I almost like laughed. I laughed because I was. It was so uncomfortable with how the fuck is someone going to give a boo or a groan to saying I don't like anti-Semitism. Like, and it's the same. But then I
well, it's
realized
because it's because they perceive anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. So, anyways, so now let's compare the fallout with Redgrave to what's happening to Glazer now. So, first of all, Redgrave, it's hard to say to what extent she was or was not canceled. She was always one of those actors who just kind of did Oscar baity projects, and she continues to work till this day, but will go several years without doing anything noteworthy. And she was always kind of like that. So, it's hard to say to what extent it affected her career. Now, if you go down to the next clip, this is unique because this didn't happen this time around, right? Because if anyone hasn't watched the clip, Glazer's speech didn't receive a whole lot of booing or hissing. Kind of got some mild golf claps. You know, I would say that there was a relatively polite response. Now, shortly after that happened, the legendary screenwriter Patty Chayefsky, who is a
that's how you
stunningly
pronounce it.
brilliant writer, stunningly brilliant writer, and stunningly insane jackass, got up on stage and responded to it. So we got that clip too.
Yep, let's go ahead and have that start. Oh boy. Patty Chayefsky, politics of the Oscar. Awesome. That's the name of the video.
That,
Fun.
that's
Let's
it.
hear this.
Before I get on to the writing awards, there's a little matter I'd like to tidy up. At least if I expect to live with myself tomorrow morning. I would like to say, personal opinion of course, that I'm sick and tired of people exploiting the occasion of the Academy Awards. For the propagation of their own personal political propaganda. I would like to suggest to Miss Redgrave that her winning an Academy Award is not a pivotal moment in history, does not require a proclamation, and a simple thank you would have sufficed.
Okay, So my take on that,
Go for it.
oh my god, that very much just seems like the earlier version of the just shut up and dribble line that conservatives use whenever a big name athlete player speaks up after winning a big game or winning the Super Bowl or stuff like that. That's basically what that was. He's basically telling her, shut up, take your award, and move on, instead of using the fact that you now have a platform to possibly help a majority of people around the world. Because, hey, look, all eyes are on you. What message do you have for them? It's the it's it's a type of, I want to say, for part of me wants to say pessimism, but I don't even think that's the right. I don't think that's the right word.
Well, no, it's very simple. Dostoevsky was a huge Zionist, and so he didn't like it. So he didn't like the other side voicing his opinion. But a couple things are noticeable. You compare it to the Laura Ingraham comment towards LeBron. Compare Chaevsky's uh, level of intelligence to Ingram. Compare how articulate he is to Laura Ingraham, and it goes to show you how much the right wing has really fallen over the years.
Very much
But
so.
an interesting thing about Chayefsky is he wrote a lot of films that I think are perceived as very, very liberal. In fact, he's Aaron Sorkin's favorite writer. But the man was radically right wing. He even once said that the Vietnam War was worth having because war for the sake of war is a must. Like the dude was completely fucking insane.
Wait, wait. I may have made you said Tchaikovsky's was like this.
Chayefsky, yeah.
What the hell? Oh,
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, compare the audience reaction to Chayefsky's speech to the mild kind of silence for the Grazer speech the other day, and you can see that there's a subtle difference in the response. And I think part of the thing is there wasn't an October 7th like event around that time, and there wasn't an insane reaction to an October 7th like event around that time, which I think makes a huge difference, obviously. But the attitudes are noticeably different in Hollywood. I think
oh yeah.
people are looking at the Grazer situation and thinking, "Oh my God, how can they still be as pro-Israel as they are?" I would say just by looking at the reaction to Redgrave's speech, the reaction in the room during a period where there was no particular controversy going on, that there's been dramatic improvement there.
Yeah, it looks seems like it. Um, fucking hell, because with the John, I'm trying to remember the Jonathan Grazer speech without having to look it up. Um, well, the article you sent me has his speech quoted pretty well. Um,
Right.
so and I like that I can actually read it now. I can actually read it because what was it? I'm really bad at hearing certain things, especially the fact that the cheers started happening almost immediately, which
Right.
drowned him out.
Right.
Again,
Right.
in comparison to how Redgrave was received, right?
Oh yeah.
Like,
But
oh,
what's in but so now apparently there's a petition going around that like 500 plus people in Hollywood have signed denouncing the speech.
yeah,
I mean,
over
who gives a
450
shit? That's
Jewish
not
creatives. Yeah,
right, but who gives a shit? That's not really going to do much. Okay, a bunch of people signed a piece of paper saying they denounce you. Nobody
yeah,
gives a shit. But what
true.
is kind of interesting about Zone of Interest is it was written by this dude Martin Amis. Do you know who Martin Amis is?
No.
He's a British writer, famous for a book called Money. I think he became Sir Martin Amis shortly before he died. Martin Amis, enormous Zionist, huge
Ooh.
supporter of Israel. He died last year, so he didn't live to see October 7th or the aftermath. So I'm kind of curious about what his response would be if he were alive.
I
It's the
feel like
interesting. Go ahead.
I feel like um I would hope I would have hoped that his response would be, if not similar to uh Glazer here, uh at least stayed somewhat moderate in understanding the history if he did.
I wouldn't count on it. But anyways, so that's kind of an interesting little tidbit. I do plan on seeing Zone of Interest eventually.
There's so
If
many
nothing
movies
else,
I
because
need
I
to
hear it's
start.
if
There's so
nothing
many
else, I
movies I need
hear
to
it's
start
very
watching.
good.
Yeah, there's so many movies I need to actually
Yeah.
start just watching, because a lot of the time I just never go, because I don't know why I'm like this. I just can't watch movies alone, and and obviously my partner's not here 24/7 to go with me to movies whenever I want. So
Right, right. All right, let's do this. Let's while we're talking about the way things were covered back in the day, let's pull up the Woody Allen, William F. Buckley Jr. clip.
when was that?
So the reason I want to set this clip up, so Bill Buckley Jr., for anyone who doesn't know, was kind of like the major conservative figure from the 60s all the way up until like the 90s. He was like the Bill O'Reilly, Tucker Carlson of right-wing television for multiple decades. So it's kind of interesting to see. This clip has got to be somewhere in the 60s.
67 is what it says.
67. All right. So just compare how the Bill O'Reilly of that day talked about this issue back then.
I'm gonna get fucking sideswiped by this, aren't I? Let's hear it. Let's go ahead and hear this. Woody Allen and William F. Buckley on the Israeli and Palestinians. And based on what Howard said, this was Bill O'Reilly back in the day. Let's see, of the day, I should say.
I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Allen, if I may. Mr. Allen, do you think that the Israelis should give back the land that they won from the Arabs?
Should the Israelis give back the land they won? No, I don't think so. I think that they should sell it back. Do you have a view of the Arab-Israeli situation, the entire Middle East situation?
Well, nothing too novel. I think eventually the Arab countries will get around to recognizing that Israel is going to be around for a while, and that when that happens, salubrious juices will...
From the Latin, salubrious, isn't it?
Nothing.
Nothing, yes.
Will happen.
And you think that eventually, in time, the situation is going to work itself out?
Yeah, it'll get tranquilized in time, I suspect.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you know, sometimes, curiously, wars do settle things. It's very unfashionable to suppose that they do. But the Israeli situation is an excellent example of where a war does situate Israeli claims in a more viable way. Mm-hmm. This was the third time around, this last contest, and Israel has accomplished something. So it is wrong, as I say, to suppose that wars never do accomplish anything. Sometimes, in fact, they do. It's a messy way to do it, but on the other hand, it is a way that it is a way that accomplishes certain things that some people want very much to accomplish. For instance, Israeli independence.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay, that okay. I might be a little bit lost in understanding what I just heard.
So the main thing I just wanted to highlight here is when I set up the Bill O'Reilly of the 60s, you were expecting a much more bloodthirsty response, weren't you?
A little bit.
Yeah, see, to me, that was a fairly moderate response on the issue for someone you would expect to be completely and utterly deranged.
Like obviously, it's still very much on Israel's side for what it sounds like.
For sure.
But it's definitely a lot more calm and chill about it. And it's almost like, oh, there's definitely going to be some kind of end to this that all sides will come out, I guess, on this. That's what it felt like. And I'm like, I can agree with that. Just, I don't think we agree on which endpoint should be the actual endpoint.
Right. Now here's what I want to highlight here. So Buckley, far and away the most prominent conservative figure at the time. Why is he not as insane as Graham, who was also one of the most insane right-wing figures at the time? Buckley was Catholic. Catholics did not believe that this was some kind of massive prophecy in the same way that Southern Baptists did.
Oh,
So the world,
that's why my grandma definitely believes that she is a Southern Baptist. She is.
right. So the thing is, the world used to be more multi-layered. Today, you've pretty much got like 3 or 4 little stereotypes that people kind of fall into. And at this point in time, there were like 6 different brands of conservative and, like 6 different brands of leftists floating around. So it was a lot less predictable. And there was, as a result, there were slightly more nuanced conversations. Buckley was pro-drug. Buckley was in favor of legalizing heroin in like 1970. Imagine tuning into Bill O'Reilly and he was in favor of legalizing heroin.
Jesus Christ. Can we, okay, it's I have just gonna say this. I would like to return to tradition, please. Let us return to tradition where we can actually fucking talk. God.
All right. So now, all right. So now let's see. Now let's take a look at some more. So now we're gonna hit the motherload of crazy. Right below that, I believe, should be Ayn Rand on Donahue.
Oh boy. Let me pull it back up. Ayn Rand on Israel and the Middle East, right?
All right, you got it. So here's the question: do people around your age group, younger people watching this, do people know who Rand is?
Considering I would consider myself somewhere within the Vosh circles, yes.
Okay, because she had kind of a comeback like 10 years ago or so, which was bizarre. So if anyone doesn't know who she is, she basically she was born in Soviet Russia. She was born in a family that was bourgeoisie, and she developed this worldview that's just a radical overreaction to communism. She basically repackaged social Darwinism and basically called it her own little worldview. Had a little cult for a while. A lot of people don't know that. She had a cult with like 100 people. Every day they would have to stand up on a chair and like objectively explain why they exist.
That explains a lot of tankies nowadays.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
All right.
Okay,
so,
Ayn Rand on the Middle East.
So here's Rand. This is the motherload of crazy from back in the day.
Oh,
and by the way, Donahue, before we start, Donahue was kind of like the View of the day. Like this is what like daytime television used to be.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna make a prediction before I hit play. Am I literally just gonna? Am I gonna hear this and it's gonna sound like the most moderate shit?
All right, we'll see.
It's gonna sound like the most moderate shit in comparison to today, to how people talk today. I bet. That's I'm putting money down on that.
All right, how much you putting down?
5 fingers. Let's go.
5 fingers. 5 fingers. Let's do it.
Drug is against.
I'd like to know your opinion on the United States' foreign policy and what is happening in the Middle East right now.
Right now, I'm not sure we know what's happening. I think that the United States foreign policy has been disgraceful for years, for decades. I would say roughly since the New Deal, and in part even before that. But if you mean whose side should one be on, Israel or the Arabs, I would certainly say Israel because it's the advanced, technological, civilized country amidst a group of almost totally primitive savages who have not changed for years and who are racist and who resent Israel because it's bringing industry and intelligence and modern technology in.
Giving it a small pause just so copyright type things, and also I know it's like probably open source type things, but still, give it a little bit of time.
Right. All right. So how do you think you did on that bet?
It's very close to the same, but still less than what I've been hearing lately. So I think I'm pretty good. I think I was somewhat right.
Okay, all
Uh,
right.
I'm only about halfway through it. I'll get to the rest of the half. Let me just say something about the first half I just heard here. What the fuck what the fuck? It's just it's like calling people primitive,
Oh
like calling
yeah.
people primitive like that. Oh my god. I just I have to hear the rest before I can formulate all my thoughts. Okay. Getting to the
All
rest.
right. Okay.
Does there's stagnation.
Your philosophy of objectivism.
That's right.
I just have one point that I think should be made, Ms. Rand, with time fleeting here. Your characterization of the situation in the Middle East came down rather gratuitously and in a very angry way on the Arabs, and without discussing the merits of either side in a most complicated and painful collision of cultures and peoples in our world. Why couldn't the men, the millions of men, women, and children who are Arab and who find themselves in this desperate conflict and look around wondering where peace will be, why can't they be angry with you for your characterization of them, your slap at them, your roundhouse criticism of them, when you don't seem to be able to tolerate a questioner who suggests that she disagrees with you? Characterization is you do not accept any criticism unless you level it.
No. I don't resort to terrorism. I don't go around murdering my opponents, innocent women and children. That is what I have against the Arabs. That takes the conflict out of the sphere of civilized conflicts and makes it murderous. And anyone, private citizens, who resort to force is a monster. And that's what makes me condemn and despise them.
Jesus. Okay. I almost want to say like hypocrisy in a way, considering I'm guessing that it uh I'm guessing that back in those days, obviously, Israel was still killing innocent women and children as well, right?
I mean, throughout the entire conflict, both sides have
We're
killed
basically doing
innocent
it.
women and children.
Yeah.
One thing about these clips, it's always kind of hard to determine exactly what is going on in the conflict. Like, what is the most recent significant event? So it's kind of hard to say who struck last when the clip was released.
Yeah, versus like at least like with right now as we are, we know like with a lot of like more modern day stuff that's currently happening, we know who struck last. I'm gonna put quotations on that because even then, people will pretend
Like
like the only thing was
I,
October 7th. It's weird.
I think I'll slightly alter what you said. We know who has most recently lost the moral high ground.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the way I'm going to phrase it.
That actually makes a lot of sense. With who recently who lost the moral high ground.
Right. For all we know, Hamas will kill 100 innocent children tomorrow, and then things will change. But as of today, Israel is the side who has most recently lost the moral high ground. That's the way I would phrase it.
Oh yeah, entirely. Although, of course, then you'd probably have some Zionist some Zionist and or Israeli politician who would rebuke that in a way, um pretending that I can say words, I swear.
You got it.
Will rebuke that, pretending that is saying I should say that Hamas should just give up all the hostages, which it's like they've tried. I've seen the negotiation papers. I've seen like what they're trying to negotiate. they're
Well,
trying to give you the hostages. They just
you can
want
say
something.
that Hamas should give up the hostages. It doesn't mean that you haven't most recently lost the moral high ground.
Oh,
You know,
exactly.
there's a such there's such a thing as an overreaction, and we're quite a few months past that.
Oh, hold on. I can find. I need to find that. I need to find that image. There's a very specific image that covered that. It was a cartoon. Basically, one of the political cartoons that covered that perfectly. I think you know which one. I think you know what I'm talking about from just from me trying to describe it.
Right.
Where it's it's like a pebble is thrown, and in response to nukes, like or
Yeah,
some
I
or
mean,
multiple missiles.
well, I mean, so many people make analogies like that. Like,
Yeah.
if I stab you with a safety pin, can you shoot me in the face? Like, I've heard so many people, say things of that nature, and yeah, I mean, excessive force might be one way of framing it. Is the very least you can say about it. All right. Let's move on to another clip. Let's see. All right, let's do the Judith Butler one since we're kind of talking about this. So we've mostly been showing toxic Israeli opinions that have been floating around in America. Let's show kind of a more toxic take from the other side. So I'm sure a lot of people know who Judith Butler is. She's an academic who's been around for a long time. It almost seems like whenever you want a caricature of left-wing academics, there's a Judith Butler quote for you. It seems like she's got a good amount of the over-the-top feminist takes that conservatives will throw out there. And she certainly got some pretty bad quotes regarding Israel and Palestine. So let's take a look at this clip.
The October 7th act of armed
Yep.
resistance. Okay.
You got it.
We can have.
There we go. Be sure I'm okay. My screen capture likes to be weird. Okay. Oh boy. Okay, so this is Judith Butler talking on October 7th. Let's hear what she had to say.
We can have different views about Hamas as a political party. I think it is more honest and historically correct to say that the uprising of October 7th was an act of armed resistance. It is not a terrorist attack, and it's not an anti-Semitic attack. It was an attack against Israelis, and I did not like that attack. I have gone public with this. I have gotten in trouble for saying it was, for me, anguishing. The violence done to Palestinians has been happening for decades. This was an uprising that comes from a state of subjugation and against a violent state apparatus. Okay, let us be clear. Now, you can be for or against armed resistance, you can be for or against Hamas, but let us at least call it armed resistance, and then we can have a debate about whether we think it's right or whether they did the right thing. The problem is, if you call it armed resistance, you are immediately thought to be in favor of armed resistance and in favor of that armed resistance and that tactic. It's like, well, actually, maybe not that tactic, and we can discuss armed resistance. It is an open debate.
I would say I have to agree with her on the majority of what she was saying. The armed resistance take that she's saying definitely is a smart, if not needed, uh, way of talking about these things, of talking about this, considering and again, we'll wait until next week, wait until next, not next week, but we'll wait until next show to talk about the full history. But based on the history that we do know of so far, the armed resistance just fits with what Hamas did on October 7th. Now, that again, as she even said in that clip there, that doesn't mean I agree with it. In fact, it shouldn't have been done that way at all. Like, hell, and I would like to have that open discussion with a lot of people on I would like to have that open discussion with people on like what would have been a better form of it, I guess.
So this is one of the things that makes this topic so complicated. So I disagree with you. Specifically, I disagree because the word armed resistance to me is a positive phrase. The word armed resistance to me is a word that I would apply to people who are heroic. And executing people at a music festival is not a heroic act. Like that's very clearly terrorism. And I'm not saying that what Israel does is particularly better or different. I guess you could say that, a military executing civilians versus someone gunning them down is kind of like all about optics and presentation. But I refuse to call anyone who does something like that the armed resistance. I view that as a positive phrase.
Hey, that's fair. No, that's fair. And that's the type of discussion I do like to have on this. It's fair to say that in order for us to have an actual talk on this particular thing. So
Right.
you would say like
Now,
you more agree. You would say like would you say you like agree in the sense you agree in the sense of like what eh you would agree in the sense of like this is like it's almost understandable what happened, but you just wouldn't want to give it the you wouldn't want to give it the label of armed resistance. You would want to call it
I
something
wouldn't I
else.
wouldn't I wouldn't say it's understandable what happened. I would say it's understandable if you live in Palestine to side with Hamas
Yeah.
over Israel. That's for damn sure. But I wouldn't say that a terrorist plot like that is understandable in any capacity. And the world is tribal. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Where you were born and who you were born into, what you were born into, determines largely what your opinion is going to be on these sort of issues. So it's understandable if you grow up in Gaza or the West Bank and you lose a family member
We
to
can have
to
different.
to Israeli forces at some point that you're going to have more sympathy towards Hamas. That's just basic common knowledge, common
Yeah.
sense. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that any kind of attack is understandable. Now, I wish I had an answer to what is the better approach, but one thing that's incredibly sad right now, and this is just a boring take to have, and I have no solution, is nothing's going to happen with current leadership. Nothing's going to
Oh,
happen with Hamas in
true.
charge, and nothing's going to happen with Netanyahu in charge. And there's nowhere to go. There is absolutely nowhere to go with that. And it's not so simple as getting rid of Hamas or Netanyahu. More likely, there'd be someone who thinks the exact same way that they do who comes in.
There is there have been talks recently. I'm pretty sure you've seen these articles every once in a these articles. Um there have been talks of Biden and them talking about ways to oust Netanyahu, thinking that that might help in a way cuz a lot of the time with these a lot of time with like the the hostage situation, trying to negotiate to get them back while also making sure the Palestinians are okay. Netanyahu seems to be the one that is the most against any kind of negotiation that will get back the people he says he wants to get back. Um, and I know based off of how he's acted with Hamas, how he's spoken about Hamas, and the history of how Hamas has gotten money. Um, it's Netanyahu actually really fucking loves Hamas because it gives him a reason to do the shit he's doing.
Right. Well, so you're gonna roll your eyes at first when I say this, but scrolling through Twitter the other day, I saw someone posted a clip of Greenwald and Destiny debating January
Uh
6th, and at some point,
yeah.
and at some point, but at some point, Greenwald says to him, "You don't know the difference." And this is in this little minute detail. He's correct. Man's a pretty successful lawyer, and he's describing this well. He
Mhm.
says, "You don't know the difference between proof and evidence. Proof is something where there is." Objective, real, tangible evidence that something has happened, and evidence is more like this kind of circumstantial things that you can gather together and try to understand who is guilty and who is not. I would say there's no proof that Netanyahu thinks that way, but there's fucking mountains of evidence that he thinks that way right now. And I would agree that that's more or less the level that he's operating on, but
Yep.
it's something there's evidence for and not proof for at the moment.
Yeah, and a lot of in courts of law, don't they usually go off of as much evidence as possible until because because there's no way you can actually prove a lot of things. You're just using evidence to have uh uh beyond a
Right,
reasonable
and
doubt.
beyond a reasonable doubt, correct. And I don't know what the percentage is, but you're right. A majority of the time, there isn't proof,
Yeah.
which is what makes the law such a shady thing. But anyways, back to Netanyahu. I agree 100%. There's lots of evidence that he thinks and operates that way. There's no proof, but the other thing is he's not the only person in Israel who thinks that way.
Oh
So
no,
you,
I
so you
forget
know,
his name.
you oust Netanyahu, like the Israeli government is not an Eddie Murphy movie where Netanyahu plays all the parts. Like half of them think that way.
I it's slight side tangent. I love that analogy. I love that analogy so much. Eddie Murphy movies are
Oh, thank
amazing.
you. I love Eddie Murphy. Even in the shitty movies where he plays all the parts, I enjoy it.
There's just something magical about seeing him in literally every position of the movie.
Pretty much.
Moving on.
Sorry. All right, let's you know what's really crazy? There's videos out there of Netanyahu. You've probably seen him when he's young, talking about how like, yeah, if you bomb a hospital during wartime, that's terrible, but that's not genocide and that's not a war crime. He's saying that when he's young, when he's like,
holy shit,
like before he's in a position of power.
And they let him in. Fucking
yeah.
Oh my god! But what was his right hand man? Like I think it's like his right hand man or like one of his advisors or something like that. I forget his name. I've heard Vosh talk about him a couple of times. Whenever he's talking about these issues. Fuck, I forgot his name. Basically, it's an advisor to one of Netanyahu's basically advisors or someone in his cabinet. I don't know his exact position, but he's high up there. He says all the quiet shit as loud as hell, and nobody cares, and that is mind fucky.
Was Netanyahu's father connected to the Stern gang? I want to say I've heard that before. Don't quote me on that if that's true, but
I am unsure. I can quickly Google that.
Yeah, let's quickly Google that.
Netanyahu. Yahoo Stern gang, you said?
Stern gang, yeah. We'll get into that in the more historical episode.
Quick rep. From Oxford reference. Then we got Britannica as well. Stern gang, Zionist extremist organization in Palestine. Founded 1940. Stern gang.
Did you Google Netanyahu?
Yeah, I said Netanyahu Stern gang.
All right, it's not coming up. It's probably bad information that I got somewhere.
Possibly. I mean, it wouldn't be that far off. It probably wouldn't even be that far off. Like, no proof, but possibly enough evidence out there to let us know that there's some correlation. Not caught no full thing, but there's some correlation.
Right. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Edward Said a little bit. Edward Said, yeah, let's go to Said here. So, a lot of people who are younger might not know who he is. He was born in Palestine, around the birth of Israel, around the war. Wound up coming to America, became an American scholar. I forget if he went to Harvard or Yale or both, and I believe he taught at Harvard. Wrote a lot of literary criticism, wrote a lot of music criticism as well, but mostly he wrote about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I would say for many, many years, he was probably the most mainstream pro-Palestinian voice in America. So we got a clip of him here. Let's just get a taste of Said.
Which clip was that one? I forget. This one.
You'll find it.
God, what is it?
Hold on.
God, you sent it. Oh, Edward's. God, that's how it's pronounced. Said.
Like
I just keep saying said. Edward said. The very first one you sent me of Canada talks.
Yeah, we can't do the full 30-minute one.
Yeah, that one was the talk between Hitchens and Edward Said, right? That's the
Right,
30-minute
right.
one.
Professor Saeed.
Oh, I brought this one up. It's already on my thing here. There it is.
All right.
Okay.
All right, beautiful, my man. I got to go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. So just you can start talking if I'm not back in time.
I'll go ahead and listen to the clip and have that go.
Yeah. All right.
Do the Zionists have any historical claim to the lands of Israel?
Of course, but I would not say that the Jewish claim or the Zionist claim is the only claim or the main claim. I say that it is a claim among many others. Certainly the Arabs have a much greater claim because they've had a longer history of inhabitants, of actual residents in Palestine, than the Jews did. If you look at the history of Palestine, there's been some quite interesting work done by biblical archaeologists. You'll see that the period of actual Israelite, as it was called in the Old Testament, dominance in Palestine amounts to about 200 to 250 years. But there were Moabites, there were Jebusites, there were Canaanites, there were Philistines, there were many other people in Palestine at the time and before and after. And to isolate one of them and say that's the real owner of the land, I mean, that is fundamentalism. Because the only way you could back it up is say, well, God gave it to us. Yes, but I mean, Christians think that God gave it to them, and Muslims think that God gave it to them. I mean, that's not a rational argument. So I think the people who have a history of residence in Palestine for a certain amount of time, including the Jews, yes, and of course the Arabs, have a claim. But, and this is very important, I don't think any claim, I don't care whether it's given by God, about
I have
many doubts, by the way,
Still hearing.
or by the emperor.
Oh, cool.
Nobody has a claim that overrides all the others and entitles that person with that so-called claim to drive people out. I mean, that's the point. This is a very, very important point. I mean.
Okay. Pause it a little bit over halfway done. Yeah, no, his point when it comes to the claims, obviously I definitely agree with him on this. A lot of what basically any claim that Israelis, Palestinians, and stuff like that have, the one that technically has the most claim is the ones who have been there the longest in a way. Even and it is very much a fundamentalist thing to think that Israelis have the ultimate claim because their book says so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. So to me, the idea that who's been there the longest or who got there
Jews
the
have a claim.
first,
I've never denied
I have conflicting emotions about
But
that.
is
I'm
it a
not sure
claim
that
that can tell a
there's any one
Palestinian, well,
particular principle that determines who does or does not get a piece of land. But the idea that who has been there the longest is the one who's entitled to it is certainly a fair one.
Yeah, and I've usually a lot of the time I've seen some leftists that I follow or that I don't follow but are within the same sphere um make that point. It's like the Palestinians and Arabs have been there much longer. Like, what does Israel think? What is Israel thinking? Saying that this is their homeland, uh, and the obvious answer is, of course, because the Bible. Like,
Right, right. Well, that kind of brings me into Finkelstein a little bit. So, have you seen any clips of the Finkelstein Destiny debates?
I have purposely avoided it because but I've seen I've seen one, and it's one that pisses me off because it's because, like, by all technicalities he's not wrong, but he's wrong when Destiny said if they were to drop a big boom and
Yeah,
eradicate all
I
of them.
saw. So I've only seen a couple clips of it, but what's what's interesting is none of it is substantial arguments going back and forth. It's largely grandstanding going back and forth, which I agree with some of what
That's what a lot
Finkelstein
of
says over the years. I disagree with others. What pisses me off is his background, which we're about to get into, is pretty impressive. And yet, whenever you see him in a debate, he spends most of his time just insulting people or grandstanding and not particularly saying much. And most of the clips that are going viral are just him insulting Destiny.
Yeah, I've been seeing people who I follow who are fans of Destiny, people who I follow who hate Destiny with a passion. I've seen people trying to defending Finkelstein. I've only seen like people quote tweeting or talking about it, and the only clip I've actually seen is the one where Destiny says it wouldn't be a genocide if they nuked. I was like, that's what? That was the only clip I've seen of it. Any
Sure,
other thing
sure.
I've been hearing kind of
Well,
secondhand.
all right. Well, let's actually cycle back to that. We'll talk about that a little bit, but I do want to talk a little bit about Finkelstein in case anyone doesn't know his background. The thing that made him super famous when he was a student at whatever Ivy League he went to, there was a book at the time, a really famous book. I think it was called like In Memoriam or something like that, and it was presented as a piece of history. And it basically presented that the Jews were really there before the Arabs, and the Arabs came there because of the prosperity that the Jews created. And it just like goes into all this allegedly historical detail. And Finkelstein, as a student, uh, dismantled the whole thing, and that's what made him famous. And his entire career ever since then has been essentially living off of that. So with that being his start, is like a 20-year-old just completely destroying this number one book that's presented as like the new gospel history. It's kind of amazing how 90% of his public speaking nowadays is just insulting the shit out of whoever he's talking to and not really
Uh,
getting into the issue that much.
that's an issue
So
with getting too big, too fast, too young.
yeah, I think there's certainly truth to that. Now, back to the whole thing about genocide. From what little I've seen, that seems to be the most interesting part of the debate is the discussion of whether or not it's genocide. And this is a tricky one because I don't know if you do call it genocide, but I don't give a fuck. It's wrong, so you can stop it.
Yeah.
So I don't give a fuck what you call it. Now,
I would
why am
definitely
I not
call it.
confident that?
I would definitely
Go
personally
ahead.
call it that, obviously, because it's definitely it's a targeted attack on a very specific type of people, the Palestinians, and Arabs getting to out of the land, and then also you have the ICJ also agreeing fully that it is
Sure,
in fact one. But that's just me
sure.
going with the actual like rulings, not just my own personal
Right,
thought on it.
right. Sure. So when I see the debate that they're having is largely about, I think it's what the UN determined constitutes as a genocide. And one of the things, and Destiny's technically right if you look it up, one of the things that they say is basically intent to wipe people off of the face of the earth. So again, back to the Greenwald thing, you can say there's evidence from that but there's not proof.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always kind of looked at it as, well, if Israel would really stop, if Hamas went away, it's not a genocide. If they would keep going, then it's a genocide. Well, we can't really determine that unless one of those two things happens.
Like Hamas would have to fully stop, either fully stop existing, or give back the hostages, and then once that's done, if they continue onward, then people who said it wasn't would then call it that.
Right, right. That's my understanding of the technicality. If you want to be super fucking technical, and the other thing is
Fair.
off the top of my head, like by the standard that a lot of people are going calling this a genocide, no one calls Dresden a genocide. No one calls what we did to the fascists during World War II. We destroyed the cities, we killed a lot of people. By the same standard, you could call that a genocide, but you're not going to because they were undeniably evil, and they were committing genocide themselves. But
Hmm.
if you just this might be fun. Let's look up genocides in history. Let's see what just a basic Google search says is and is not a genocide.
Genocide.
Because the question is, are there examples where there are two sides who are at war with each other? And for for lack of a better word, valid reasons.
Let's just go straight to the Wikipedia page. List of
Wikipedia.
genocides. So yeah, just
By
straight
the
to the
way,
Wikipedia page.
I have such mixed emotions about the snobbery towards Wikipedia. Like, yeah, I understand why it's not acceptable in academic circles, but for like a conversation like this, where we're just saying, "Oh, let's do the quick Google search," it's fine.
Yeah, no, the snobbery usually comes from the fact that it does give a quick overview of whatever discussion people are having, um, and a lot of the time that quick overview completely shuts out any weirdo online who's just trying to spread
Right.
misinformation. So
And that's
they
fair.
get pissed about it.
And I will acknowledge as we dive into this, this is a topic where I don't necessarily consider Wikipedia the absolute greatest source.
It's a good. It's
But all right, it's decent enough. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, it's as I've always stated when it comes to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is an amazing jump point. Like it's not a this is where you find all the answer. It's like this has sources in it that I can then dig into if I wanted to.
Right,
But it
right.
gives you a quick overview.
Well, we're totally going to use it in the next episode because there's no way I can find lots and lots of articles of the stuff I want to talk about. Like it'll just be too fucking hard. It'll just be easy enough for the sake of the podcast to just defer to it. Anyways,
And I already know like me with how busy I keep being and how tired I get. I literally have no chance of being able to do all the searching like you can. I appreciate you so much for what you do.
Yeah, of course, man.
Okay, so we had the I am not going to be able to say that correctly. Rohingya? That the Rohingya genocide? I think that's how you say it. Rohingya.
Is this going chronologically?
I think this is I don't think it's going it's going chronologically backwards. The most recent the most recent one right now it's saying is the Rohingya genocide from 2016 to right now. I'm gonna
Africa?
scroll. The location is the Rakhine State, Myanmar.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Here's one. Here's one. Let's see this. Is Cambodia on the list?
Yep, Cambodian genocide, Democratic Kampuchea, Cambodia. Yeah.
Oh no. But is America's bombing of Cambodia considered a genocide? Is what I was asking. So is that the Khmer Rouge is counted as a genocide, or the U.S. bombs are considered genocide?
Oh. If I go to it,
this could be a big factor.
If I click on it to see what it is, because obviously we're talking about they're talking about Pol Pot immediately.
Okay, so it's not considering the U.S. with the U.S. the genocide. What about Iraq? Does it consider what happened in Iraq a genocide?
See if I can find it. Wait, there was a California holy shit. Sorry. I am okay, so I'm not seeing no, I am not seeing Iraq. I'm seeing Libyan. I'm seeing the Holodomor, Romani.
Yeah. So far, just based on Wikipedia, they tend not to consider genocide when it's two countries who are at war with each other.
Yeah.
Which I mean, if society wants to have a debate to alter that definition, that I wouldn't mind if society changed that definition per se. But if we want to be super technical, from what I've seen all this time, it doesn't look like they consider genocide when two countries are at war. But I would argue that if Hamas gives the hostages back and yet Netanyahu keeps the bombing, then I would say that you would have to call it that, because that's at that point that's clear intent to just eradicate the people.
And again, that's why the evidence from to me shows that he absolutely loves Hamas, because it gives him an excuse to where people can scapegoat and say no, it's not a genocide, they're just at war constantly. Instead, I feel like that's the reason why he has said and done things to basically make Hamas what's the word I'm looking for here? make Hamas
Great again.
God damn it. Conflate. Jesus Christ. He wants to conflate Hamas with Palestinians at all times. That way, and that's
And
why he did
and
everything he could.
that's not a difficult thing to do. Whenever there's a war, the lowest common denominator, people naturally conflate the citizens in the country together. You know that happens every time there's any kind of war. Um, so the other thing is I can't think of an example of something that's considered genocide where the other party is also interested in genocide. Where
Yeah.
I would say Hamas's genocidal tendencies are as strong as Netanyahu's.
They just
They're the
don't have the
ones with
power.
they're the ones with the paperclip trying to stab people, and Hamas in return have the guns.
Yeah, no, yeah. Hamas has a paper clip. Israel has the fucking gun. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think so. The original Hamas charter, if I'm not mistaken, talks about executing Jews, like just
Yes.
straight up. And there's
Oh
like been
yeah,
a
it does.
modified one more. There's been a modified one more recently that takes out the part about killing Jews, but is still kind of subtle about it. Like it would
Yeah.
be equivalent to it would be equivalent to finding like an old Klan handbook that talks about hanging black people, and then the Klan being like, "Oh well, we don't do that anymore. Look at our new handbook that talks about preserving the bloodline." It's like, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. We know what you mean. Yeah, but
Yeah.
but yeah, and again, that's another reason why I there's another reason why like what happened during the I guess this would be a thing that we would be talking about when we talk about the history of it and everything. Um, when it comes to the history of like Palestine trying to vote in a party that could help negotiate and possibly get some peace deals together. Netanyahu did everything in his power to make Hamas the one that rules Palestine by giving all the money that they would have gotten for aid and everything and giving it straight to the Hamas terrorist group, make sure that they could get the vote, get the
Right. And
vote and win.
you know what? You know what people don't talk enough about in that initial election with Hamas. That was a multi-party election. There was like many parties on the ballot, and Hamas won with well under 50%.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, I remember seeing that chart. I remember seeing that chart. It
I forget
was
I forget the exact numbers, but it was a pretty small number for them to take
I
over the country with.
think it was like 40%. Like they just broke 40 something percent.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and with I the was it the PLO? Palestinian Liberation.
PLO was way before that.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different one. Uh
Yeah,
what was it? Something it was P something. Like Palestinian like
P for
something.
Palestine.
Yeah, P for
Yeah,
Palestine.
yeah.
It was another party
P for
that was
Palestine.
there was very much another, it was like two parties there who both wanted some kind of like either two state or one state solution that they were willing to negotiate and work with and work on to, you know, have peace. It's like very liberal or even progressive parties that wanted to change things up, that wanted to talk with Israel to try and, you know, have peace for the citizens. But then Netanyahu did everything in his power to make Hamas be the one that won that with that very small number.
Right, right. Now, I have no idea why this just popped into my head, but here's a fun conspiracy theory that a lot of people have. So you know how RFK Senior, of course, was killed by a Palestinian. Just a random Palestinian man living in America, and he like confessed to the crime years later. Uh, Somewhat recently, RFK Jr. says that like he met him in prison, and after talking to him, he does not believe that he's the man who killed his father. Now, of course, the source here is RFK Jr., which is not exactly the most credible source in the world, but I find this to be a little fascinating piece of history that people don't know about.
Yeah, that's definitely new to me. That's first I'm hearing that. Shit.
But there's always it's one of those topics that there's always insane conspiracy theories floating around.
I don't know, like being able to, and
And I
I still
think
hate to
part of the
talk
reasons,
this.
I mean, first of all, you know, conspiracy theorists naturally are anti-Semitic, so there's just an absurd amount of conspiracy theories from the
And
Palestinian side, for lack of a better word. But it's
and
also
just and
it's
just
this
so we have
never it's this.
and just so we
Yeah, go
have a
ahead.
little bit of just a small bit of clarification. Of course, when we're saying that, uh, we're more talking about the wing nuts, not the conspiracy theories of old that called out things like Nixon's Watergate and stuff like that. There's a very
Sure,
strong
sure.
difference.
Right, right. But it's just it's such a hotbed of uncertainty where you have this conflict that goes on decade after decade and has no end in sight, and no one can do anything to fix or help it. So they sit around talking and thinking about it, and naturally, a million conspiracy theories are going to come from that.
Oh, entirely. Uh, hmm.
All right, all right. So let's move on to Ali. I wanted to end on a positive note here.
Muhammad Ali, right? Or am I crazy? Am I thinking the wrong thing? Hold on, trying to find it. Fuck, you sent it and everything, and I always lose
Yeah,
track of things.
you can just pull up the image.
Oh, Haj Amin Al Husayani, or
Nope, no, we're going to talk about that next week.
that's gonna be the next week. Okay.
Muhammad Ali, the boxer.
Yeah. Where is it? Where is it? It's, did you? I know you sent it. For some reason I can't. There it is. Found it. Okay, took me a second. Found it. Okay. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Okay.
All right,
I
so
found the article.
all right, cool. So I wanted to bring this up. Ali traveled to Palestine in I think '85, which is around the time he quit boxing, and just came back and showed the utmost respect for the Palestinians and support for Palestinians. Now, of course, Ali was a Muslim. He was a member of the Nation of Islam, which led to some good and bad takes throughout his life. Led to him supporting Gaddafi, led to him kind of low key supporting Malcolm X's murder. But
Ooh.
here we have him. Here we have him standing up for the people of Palestine. And a cool story a lot of people don't know. I couldn't find an article on this, but you can watch Billy Crystal's eulogy of Muhammad Ali. Those two were like best friends, which a lot of people don't realize. And they teamed up together to put together a charity group, which was to have a theater in the middle of the Middle East, where everyone who was to perform was to be either Israeli or Palestinian. And this survived like 20 years, Israelis and Palestinians writing plays and performing plays together on
Billy,
Ali and Crystal's dime. Yeah.
you said Billy Crystal's Muhammad Ali tribute.
Oh yeah,
Like
you
50.
could watch that. It's gonna take forever to find it though. It's like somewhere in the middle.
Oh, and yeah, the Billy, yeah, 12. I'm seeing a video, 12 minutes, about 12 minutes, 50 called 15 rounds from 1979.
Oh, that's not even the one. It's
That's not even
his.
the one.
He talks about it. He talks about it at his funeral, but every clip about that is going to be like 15 minutes, so it's not worth pulling it up. But yeah, so if the world's most famous Muslim and one of the world's most famous Jews can come together and do something like that, there's hope in there somewhere. Might
Yeah.
take 500 years, but there's some kind of hope.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a take I would like to try and have happen for everything. With the Israel-Palestine conflict, definitely I would like things to get better for both sides of this. Obviously, the civilians from both sides. Right now, both sides of this have an extremist group in charge of them. Unfortunately, uh, just one happened. Just unfortunately, one also has the backing of the most powerful nation in the fucking world. Ugh.
Another thing that people don't talk about enough here is Hamas leadership does not live in Gaza. Hamas leadership lives in Qatar, which is like one of the wealthiest countries in the Middle East. They all live in Qatar in a wealthy neighborhood, surrounded by some of the most important people in the world. And Qatar is one of the U.S.'s allies. So a part of it that's so fucked up that people really need to be more aware of is we're funding the shit out of Israel to bomb Gaza, and we're
Where
trying to
Hamas
get rid
even
of
isn't
Hamas.
that.
But Hamas's leadership is in a country that is our ally in like the most protected, wealthiest community ever.
It took me. I'll add a slight thing. It took me a hot second. You were saying Qatar, and I realized you were meant
Qatar, Qatar.
Yeah,
I've
I've
heard it
always.
pronounced both ways.
Yeah, I've only ever heard it as Qatar, but then someone told me it's actually pronounced Qatar, and I was like, I don't believe you. It's Qatar. Fuck you.
I've I've heard both. I've heard both. I don't know.
I
I don't
have.
know what.
I've heard both as well, and Qatar just sounds better to me, but
I
it took
agree.
me a
It's a cooler
second.
name. It also looks. That's how it looks like it should be pronounced when you look at the word.
Right? But no, but oh my god, that's actually that is frustrating as shit.
Okay. Say someone were to say, "Hey, we should take out Hamas leadership." Okay, you gonna bomb a wealthy neighborhood in Qatar?
Like that. I mean, right now they're bombing fucking Lebanon and Syria
No.
They're like actually sending more bombs outward than where they say Hamas is supposedly, but not going
Right.
where they actually are. Fun. And
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shit show. All right. Well, I think that just about wraps it up. I'm not sure we've got any more clips to reference. And oh yeah,
yeah,
there
for
was the
now.
Nixon one. If you want, we can maybe save that one for the next episode.
Yeah, we can say that for the next one. I might need your help formulating some questions.
Okay. All right. You wanna?
Uh, I would want to formulate some questions to be able to send out, and whatever like 2 clips will be good, possibly. Um, Out of all these that we just did, for a panel on this. So I'll be getting in touch
Okay.
with as many
Okay.
people as I can.
All right, man. Sounds good. I will see you next week. I will be participating in the first panel show for sure. So I will see you next week.
Hopefully, because it's gonna fully depend if I could actually get enough people. I'm going to bare minimum hope I can get like 4 other people. If I can get just bare minimum 4, it should be good. But I'm gonna try for a full party of like 6 or something.
All right, brother. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. I will see.
Yeah, yeah. You go ahead
Uh,
out, and I'll do my little sign off.
all right. Sounds good. Thank you for listening to whoever it was who listened to this podcast. Have a good
And
night.
he's out. Okay. Let me go ahead and get to my full screen real quick. Yes. I have 2 other episodes I still need to upload. But this is definitely one I'm gonna need to upload quicker. Uh, I'll see if I can upload the first 2 episodes soon, and then I'll try and get this one out to be a full something else as well on an actual YouTube channel, so that there's more of an archive than just Twitch. But yes, to all you who did join in for this small amount of time that we were speaking, I thank you so much. I hope you learned some new information when it comes to this rather painful to understand conflict. I love learning new things, even if they are painful things like this. This has definitely been a fun one. Like, subscribe, follow, all that type of stuff. Um, Learn when I'm going live soon, not only for this, by following me on Twitch, Razor Sharp Gaming 96 on twitch.tv. Um, Follow me on my Twitter, RazorSharpG96, to just see what I tweet random shit, or if I talk about what the next story thing is gonna be. The world is complicated, and I want to be able to talk about it, regardless of political sides. If you're willing to speak and learn, you're welcome here. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a good one. If I go live again, it's gonna be to play some games. But for now, signing off. Peace.